All right, guys, this is the second part of these videos. So if you accidentally clicked on this one first, go back and watch the first one, okay? So when I left off, I asked you if you could figure out what it says. Probably not for a couple of reasons, okay? First reason, it's small and hard to read. The second reason is it's in Italian. The third reason is it's actually written backwards. Okay, so the only way to read this is to hold up a mirror to it and look at it backwards. And that's because Da Vinci was so paranoid about his ideas being stolen, he kind of wrote in code. Okay, so here are some other inventions that he's coming up with through his sketchbook. Okay, all right, moving on to Michelangelo. Now, he was primarily a sculptor, and we're going to look at two of his sculptures, but he's probably best known as a painter because he painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Okay, that is the Sistine Chapel, not the 16 Chapel. There's not 15 other chapels, okay? We'll look at that in a second. And his two sculptures that he's most famous for are the Pieta and the David. So the Sistine Chapel is located within the Vatican in Rome, and the Pope actually wanted another artist, Raphael, to complete it, but they ended up getting Michelangelo instead, and this is what he came up with. Okay, so what you're seeing is if the camera were pointed straight at the ceiling. Okay, so down here would be one side, up here would be another side, and this would be the ceiling right here. Okay, and you might be thinking, how did he paint on a ceiling? Well, he actually built scaffolding to kind of get himself up there, and then he painted with basically his hands over his head for that entire time. Okay, so think about how quickly your arms get tired just by holding them over your head. Now imagine trying to paint. Okay, so we're going to look at this in a little bit more detail. Okay, give me a second to switch my screen here. Now you guys are seeing how the magic happens. Okay, so this is an actual tour of the Sistine Chapel, okay? So you can go through here, and you can notice right away how detailed the mosaics are on the ground, okay? So as we go up, we're going to go all the way up, oops, and we're going to zoom in a little bit, or we're going to try, hold on. Boom, here we go. So lots of nudity in this one, but this is, all of the ones in the middle are going to be the book of Genesis, having to do with how this is God creating Adam, and then we'll see, what's way this side? Oh, this is, hold on, we're going to go to the other side. That has to do with Noah and the flood. And then, oops, and then creating, hold on, this thing, sorry, I hope you're not getting sick. You'll see, I'm going to try to get, oh, there it is. Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, the creation of Eve. Okay, now the other cool thing is you see all of these, they look like statues right here. And I say they look like statues because they're not actually statues. These are a style of painting that he used to make it look three-dimensional, but that's actually painted on right here, okay? So you can see it tells stories of the Bible, okay, of the Old Testament, but he kind of had a falling out with the church, and the wall at the back, so let's get turned around here. This is kind of like the final judgment, okay, and this gets very, very dark. In fact, you can see from back here, look how dark these colors are, even compared to in the middle and to the top, okay? It was supposed to be very, very dark, and it's showing, it's pretty gruesome, okay? Here's my favorite guy. You see him? Yeah, there we are, okay? And it's showing kind of the torture between heaven and hell, right? And we've got a lot going on, right? We've got Jesus here. Okay, so this is just, it's amazing to walk through. You can walk through. You can't take any pictures. They have security there specifically watching. And that's because it's really why you're not supposed to take pictures at any museum is because of the flash, because light destroys things. So you don't want to do that. Okay, so there we go. This is the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. Okay, but like I said, he was a sculptor. So let's look at some of his sculptures. Okay, so this is the Pieta. This is located in the Vatican. And you might look at this and not understand what it is, but this is actually a religious image. This is Mary holding Jesus. Okay? And why this is so important, why this is so incredible is look at all of the detail in their clothing. It looks like it's laid fabric. Remember, this is carved from a single piece of solid marble with just a chisel and a hammer. Okay, and it is incredibly detailed. I mean, you can see even where this strap is right here, right, that the wrinkles adjust to accommodate for that. And the reason why I point this out too is because you know how artists will sign the picture in the corner? He actually carved his name right there. Okay, so it's amazing, the detail. Look, even where her fingers are, right, and it's moving the cloth. Okay, it's absolutely incredible. Okay, and more of that detail is going to be shown in the next image. Okay, and this gentleman is going to be fully nude. Okay, this is the David. It stands about 16 feet tall. Okay, so this is a giant statue, and the reason why, again, it's so revered is because look at the detail. Okay, if you can think back to when we learned about like Julius Caesar, and I showed you a picture of him, like they don't even have eyes in the Roman Empire. Now this looks like, I mean, just the detail from turning the neck and the muscles popping out within the ears. I like to show the hand because now it looks funny. That's just a shadow. Nothing's wrong with it. It's just the shadow, but just the veins coming into the hands, right? That's incredible that they're carving this from a solid piece of marble. Okay, so that's the David. You saw the Pieta. So this is a secular image, and this is a religious image, both done by Michelangelo. All right, now let's get into the writers. A lot of writers, people finally not writing about God. Okay, and characteristics, like I said, it's secular focus that reflects the classical style meaning the style of the Greeks and the Romans, and it's with humanism, it's about people. So I'm going to rush through these real quick. Petrarch, okay, he writes sonnets about unattainable love, and with a headpiece like that, we can see why. But he's going to embrace the classical ideas. He's the poet. Okay, so he writes sonnets. Shakespeare wrote in sonnets. You'll learn about those in English class. Know that Petrarch wrote poems. Erasmus, he was a humanist, but he was Christian, so he has that kind of background. He writes a book called In Praise of Folly, and it's going to make fun of Renaissance society. And satire is when you make fun of society. So if you've ever seen the late night comedians like Conan O'Brien or some of those guys where they just kind of laugh at the world, that's what he's attempting to do, right? So like if I were going to make a joke about, like a satirical joke about the world now, it would be like, oh yeah, your life sucks so bad because you don't have good Wi-Fi in my class. You know, it's like, it's making fun of the problem, okay? So in the Renaissance society, it would have been like, oh, I can't get this painter to paint my family because he's booked already. Like, it's ridiculous, okay? So just know that he writes in praise of folly, and it is satirical or satire. Okay, Niccolo Machiavelli writes a book called The Prince. If you are at all interested in studying law or studying political science, you will read this book. And it's about political power, and specifically absolute power. And he calls it the prince because if you are the prince, you will eventually become king, right? So he's saying that if you are a prince, you need to assert your authority right away. That you need to let everybody know from the time that you're young that you are to be respected and that you have power, so that when it becomes your time to be in charge, that you already have the power and to do whatever it is to make it worth it. Okay, so the end justify the means. That means basically do bad things if it gets you what you need to do. Okay, and this can also be looked at as an ethical thing too, right? If I'm walking down the street and somebody tries to rob me with a gun and I wrestle the gun out of them and I shoot them and I kill them, well, I could say, well, I had to do that, otherwise it was basically either me or him, right? Is it okay to kill people? Probably not. But what happens if you're about to be the one to be killed? Does the end of that person dying justify the means of how you got there? Okay? Niccolo Machiavelli. Okay? That's him right now. Well, not right now, but that's what he looked like. All right, and our last person that we're learning about all year long, Sir Thomas More, writes a book called Utopia about creating the perfect society that is peaceful. Now, utopias aren't a thing because eventually, if you put a number of people in the same area, there's going to be tensions. Not everybody's going to get along with everybody. People are going to have a different way to run the society. The way I remember this is Sir Thomas More wants a more perfect society. Okay, and that's it. These are your notes. You're done. So you're going to work on your Renaissance packet or the reading, and then if you have time, you're going to click down and get on Quizlet. Please make sure you put the tablets back nicely and correctly, and that'll be that. See you guys next week.